Hey everybody, it's TF Nut here. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Star Wars The Black Series Imperial Stormtrooper, which I believe this particular design is based on the appearances in The Mandalorian as well as Rogue One, because I believe those designs share a design. I'm not entirely sure, that's what I've heard, but either way, we have a new Stormtrooper. And this is some pretty good news. If you don't have the previous Stormtroopers, which I think a lot of us do by now, then we have these new ones that are going to be able to army build that will hopefully be a little easier to come out as time goes on, and then we'll be able to army build these properly. Now, I don't have the packaging here, unfortunately, right now, because I was just too excited to open it, and I put it away in storage, as well as the ones for the Camino Trooper and the Snow Speeder Luke Skywalker that I bought at my local Target recently. So when I do those reviews, I won't have the packaging. Next time I get a figure from this new series or a future series that have the new packaging, I will make sure to show it off though, because it is really cool. It's a little thinner and it has this slant, so it's kind of have a curve on the side so you can see the box art a little easier, and it's just some of the coolest packaging that Hasbro I think has ever done. And this figure is really cool. I honestly think I like this a little bit more than the previous Stormtroopers, but it's not without its flaws. I will go over that shortly, but first we'll take a look at his accessory and then we'll take a closer look at the figure. So this is what the new E11 looks like for this new Stormtrooper. I can't tell you if we're going to get these anymore with future Imperial releases. What I can say though is that it is different from a couple of E11s that we have had in the past. When it comes to the original trilogy stuff, or pretty much the first ever Stormtrooper stuff, it is a little smaller and the sculpt is slightly different. This new one has a longer mag and it has a flashlight on the side. And then when we look at the Rogue One versions that were also different for the previous E11s, those are very similar to this new one. Again, the new one is a little smaller, not by much though, a little smaller than any of the E11s that we've had so far. And the sculpt's nice, it's good enough, I think. I do think it could use a little bit of paint. Sometimes we've had some E11s that have dry brushing, which those usually look really cool, or even just some silver in some areas that, kind of like where a chamber would be. But overall, I think that this is a really nicely looking piece. So this is essentially supposed to be a remnant trooper, which was one of those stormtroopers that we got in The Mandalorian 5 years past the end of the Empire. They were pretty dirty. Their armor was pretty beat up. This time around, though, it's just a very clean suit, very clean armor. And honestly, I'm glad that we have a clean version, because I do think eventually they will make a dirty version. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but it's nice to have one that's regular, so that way you don't, if you want a regular one, then you could always just make it dirty yourself too. I mean, you shouldn't have to, they shouldn't make a dirty one, but sometimes it's always fun to do it yourself as well. For certain customizers like to do it themselves all the time. Now, when it comes to a lot of the details, I think things are very well done. I can't tell you how accurate it is compared to the original designs back in the 70s and 80s for Stormtroopers, and I can't tell you how accurate it is for the newer Stormtroopers. What I can say though is that a lot of it, the sculpting just looks really great. Some of the printing might be a little off on mine. Whatever this paint app is, it looks way too big for whatever this is right here. And a lot of it is pretty clean. I think a couple splotches here and there, but you really have to look in there deep and notice it. I really do like the helmet. Me personally, I do think the head is just a tiny bit too small, but I mean, it's not horrible. It doesn't take me out of the immersion that someone's in a suit. Now these neck pegs are removable. I wouldn't do this often. I'm just showing this off. We have a lot of these new type of systems where we have this blank head underneath the helmet. It's not removable. You could get in there and try to remove it if you want, but the intention is not to be removed. The intention is to have this little hard shell here, and you have a head over it, and then it tries just, if you're doing toy photography, I mean, if you see anything under here, they'll kind of keep immersion. I don't really entirely know why they did this. But it would have been cool if the helmet was just removable and given us some kind of generic head, maybe some alternate heads would have been cool if you're going to do that. They do the same thing with the Camino Trooper, and we've had head sculpts for clone troopers in the past, so why wouldn't you just give us a removable helmet with an actual painted head? Oh well. We do have, this is actually, it's not removable, but it is movable, so that's kind of cool, this chest piece here. I do like how it comes out, like a lot of the grooves coming out here. Some paint. I don't know if this is supposed to be painted up here where the straps are. Some painted areas could be nice. It's just kind of molded in this white color. It looks good, but I mean, again, it would have looked a little nicer if it was painted. At least giving us some, maybe not everything needed to be painted. Some details would have been nice. Maybe some, like, I don't know, a wash in some areas. But overall, the way it looks, I think it looks aesthetically pleasing. Especially the undershirts here. You can see there's some nice line work going on, some nice texturing and details. The shoulders here are on a soft plastics, and they actually don't hinder articulation, which I'll get into in a little bit. So I like how they're doing a lot of this stuff now. Really nice with the arms. There's no longer a swivel, but it's at the elbow, which I think is fine. The forearm's pretty good. They continue that sculpting there in the joint. However, I don't believe they continue it on the bottom here. So that would have been cool if they did have some sculpting still on the bottom. But I think you're mostly going to notice it when it's straightforward. When you're posing, I'm not, like, if you're going to have it posed just as a practice pose like this, I don't think you're really going to notice those elbows on the other side too well. So that's fine. Hands are pretty good. This one has a little bit of trouble holding underneath the gun, but it's not impossible. I think it's just the way it's sculpted. Nice black buttons around here in the center. What the back looks like. I don't know what these canisters are supposed to be, but they do have some nice silver paint. Not really paint, it's a silver paint. It's gray. Very dark gray. I don't really understand what these are either. But they don't really get in the way of articulation. They are a soft plastic and they will move around. Legs this time around are not easy, or are not hard, excuse me, to move around. They were extremely hard last time. And then that's what the inside of the leg looks like. There's a little bit of some wrinkles in there. Could have better details, but I don't think it looks terrible. For all I know, it could be accurate to how the suits actually look. So that same thing, let me look at the back here. Yeah, so they have the details right there on the back of the knee. Now this one might be a little bit more noticeable if you're doing running poses. And then you can see that knee doesn't have any kind of details. But just straightforward, it looks fine. And then we have the shins that are also nicely sculpted. Just nice little divots here. I got a little bit of a speck on my shin right there. But then we had come down to the feet. They look really good. Is there any serial printing? The serial printing is on the foot. Let's just do that from now on, Hasbro. Stop doing it on the back of the legs for Marvel Legends. You can see all this different writing right there. I overall think that this is just a really clean sculpt. Could have had a little bit more paint in some areas, but honestly, I think it looks fine. It may have not even worked if it had certain paint in some areas. Now, if it was dirty like a Remnant Trooper, I think it would be fine as well. Articulation's pretty good. It has some new articulation. I think it actually takes away a little bit of articulation from previous Stormtroopers, but when I've been posing them around, I honestly like posing this better because it's not a pain to do. The head has an actual, I can actually take the head off again real quick. So as you can see, we actually do have a joint that goes into the head there. So you move that around. And then there's an actual peg here. So it's a ball joint. So that way you get a little bit more tilt. Side to side, no problem. So the tilt there up is pretty good. Down could be a little better, but it's not horrible. We do have butterfly joints here. And then the shoulder, I think actually, if we take a, let me try to zoom back in and see, because I can't tell what's going on here. I think it's on the butterfly. It's on it's on this arm. So it will move around with the arm, or the shoulder at least. So that's a really interesting system that they did there. It moves up very well, and it's a soft plastic. It may eventually break off, which would be annoying if it did, but right now there's no problems. Just make sure you grab this shoulder and move it up, move it back, then in and out again. One more time with the butterfly joint just to remind you. Really nice single jointed elbow. It's really good. I honestly think it might compete with the double jointed elbow it had last time. And we have a swivel here, swivel at the wrist. Now this has an up and down hinge, while this one has an in and out hinge. And it works really well when you're doing firing poses. We have a ball jointed waist, which can go all the way around, forward, back, side to side. Now this might be a little bit of a problem. This doesn't really look all that natural. It kind of looks slanted and it can kind of ride up a little bit, but so far this chest piece that is movable isn't really giving me that much trouble. Legs to go forward that much, it still gets a little bit hindered. I don't think as much as the previous one, in and out like that. The back's not really, actually the back is a little better than I think last time. The swivel's pretty good. You can get, honestly, the same range of kick no matter how you rotate it. Sometimes with the previous one you had to rotate it, and that was how you got the good kick. This time around it's not really an issue, so that's awesome. We have a single jointed knee that I think also almost is as good as the double joints. It swivels here. And then we have a bend at the foot, which is a little tight, but the ones on the previous Stormtrooper were super tight to where they just didn't want to move and make them stand up straight. The also goes forward, of course. And then we have an ankle rotation. So here's a quick comparison with the previous Stormtroopers that we would usually get. And I do think that the previous Stormtroopers are still pretty good. However, I really do prefer the new ones. Me personally, I just think that the new ones look a little bit more natural. There's parts on the old Stormtroopers that just don't really look too well. I think that the helmet sculpt is fine, but I think it might be just a little too big. Same thing with the shoulders. I think they're a little too big on the old one. Not only when it comes to the sculpt, but articulation wise and just parts wise. This new one I think is better and a little bit more solid, because a lot of the articulation is just very finicky on the old one. The double joints work, however, the upper arm really gets in the way, so it's really just the bottom joint that works the most when it goes towards the forearm. And then the upper thigh swivel on my right leg for one of these here. It's not for all of them, but this one in particular, it wants to break off. I was never really able to make it swivel because it would just be stuck in there, and then the joint wants to break in half, so that's not great. And again, the ankles on the previous one are just very hard to move around, to where it took me like a good 5 minutes for me to position these ankles on the old one to actually stand. Now, the new one isn't, again, without its problems, but I think that it's just overall sculpt-wise and figure-wise, like mechanics-wise with the articulation a little bit better, because while it has less articulation than the previous one, I don't think it necessarily needs it. I think with that less articulation, they were able to improve on it with just simplistic single joints that, with the sculpting, bend far enough to do what you want. And the ball joints in certain areas really helps. So for some size comparisons, we have on the left the first Black Series Mandalorian figure we got last year. And then on the right we have Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order. And then we have the Rebel Trooper on the left with the retail version of the Shore Trooper from Rogue One on the right. And then we have that new Snow Speeder Luke on the left with the Han Solo from Episode 5 on the right. And then last but not least, we have the Black Series R2-D2 and the Black Series C-3PO. So I'm going to go ahead and end this review showing off some of the Black Series Stormtrooper weapons that we've gotten in the past. And honestly, he looks really good with a lot of these weapons. You have some of the old E11s that we have, and even some of the anthology Stormtrooper weapons, like what we got with the Mud Trooper Han Solo, and also we had that rifle with the Shore Trooper, the retail version. He looks really good with those. Some of these weapons I don't think really look good with any Black Series character, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, he holds a lot of these weapons just as good, if not better, than previous Stormtroopers in the past. And that pretty much ends this review. I am extremely satisfied with this figure. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it is, but I'm really digging it. If you have the previous Stormtroopers, you're probably thinking, I have all those already, I don't need this new one. I would at least get one of these new ones, and then if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you like it, then you should get more. I am definitely going to get at least 1 or 2 more in my collection. And yeah, it's a little hard to find right now because I think it's going to be easier to find the fall, but everyone has been looking for these. I found mine at a local Target and I got really lucky, even though I can only find one. So keep checking online like Amazon. Sometimes the pre-orders restock there, even Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth. This figure is really well done. A few issues here and there, but really nothing major. Even though it doesn't have that much articulation, it almost does just as much articulation as the previous one, and I think it's better for it. The sculpting is really good. The paint apps are clean for the most part. I just wish it maybe came with a couple more weapons, and eventually we get some dirty ones, but I do think later on down the line we'll get some dirty ones. It's a really awesome figure, and it's about $20, so you really can't go wrong with that. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. More reviews will be coming soon. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later.